Okay, welcome to the second episode of the pod on some deep shit. My name is Doc, and I am here to talk about various deep things, or things that we can perceive as deep that are just kind of interesting to me, and I think valuable for people in the world to know today. Things about spiritual stuff, things about psychological stuff, things about philosophical stuff, just all kinds of stuff that could be useful for us to think about, because I believe personally that we are here. Everyone's here for a unique reason, but I think ultimately we are here to enhance and expand ourselves spiritually and remember the truths of the universe and why we incarnate here and what we're doing to, I guess, further our experience in this reality. And that might seem a little woo-woo, but if you stay here for a bit, you'll understand that everything is kind of woo-woo with me. But today, honestly, I get in front of the camera and I act a little more animated than I normally am, but I'm feeling a bit of depression today. It's hard to call it depression because I've experienced a lot of depression in my life. I was diagnosed with a bunch of mental illnesses when I was 21. I was kind of fine before that. I was an anxious mess, but I was kind of normal in my mind anyway. And then when I was 21, I developed depersonalization derealization disorder, which is not heavily studied yet, and especially at the time it wasn't. So I was like, what the fuck's wrong with me? Everything feels terrible and confusing and awful. But that came with a heavy dose of depression and anxiety. So to say it's depression today feels like a bit of a lie, because I am down a little bit. I'm low energy and I'm feeling not super motivated, but I'm pushing through it anyway to do this. But I don't feel hopeless. I think that a key point of depression when people feel it is hopelessness. And you know what, let me turn off this fan so there's not as much background noise. And I don't feel hopeless, I feel hopeful. I know that this is just an energetic, we all go through waves of highs and lows. I myself am diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2. So I take lamotrigine for that, a mood stabilizer, and Abilify, an antipsychotic. And those really help me. But depression is something that a lot of people go through. A lot of people go through it, because I think the core of depression, aside from chemistry, because it is very much chemistry, but it is also energetic, as everything is, as above, so below. And I think when people feel disempowered, like they have no control over their situation, like they can't pull themselves out of a situation, they can't solve it, they don't have the tools available, these are all illusions, but they believe these things about themselves, then it can feel very hopeless, and that can kind of drain your energy, block your energy centers, and just make you feel like shit. like I can't do anything about this. All I can do is sleep. I just don't want to be conscious. I just don't want to be here experiencing this. That's kind of how I would describe depression. I just don't want to be here experiencing this. It feels like nothing makes it better. It feels like nothing is going to be good again. It feels like I'm trapped in a dark hole. I used to describe it as kind of like being in like a 10-foot hole in the ground, and there's a ladder, but it's just out of my reach. So as I always said, I always just need a little help, but there's no one there to let the ladder down. And that's how it felt, or I felt like I was a puppet with no strings attached, and I was just trying desperately to do what I'm supposed to do in this world, as they say, and work, form relationships, have experiences, and it was just it just felt numb. I think that's actually the core attribute of depression that I would talk about. You feel numb. It's different from sad, because some people are like, oh, depressed, I'm so sad. It's like sadness is different. Sadness is an emotion. Sadness is a feeling. Depression is almost like the lack of feeling. It's like nothing. It's a void. It's empty. It's just, it's a dark hole. And I used to think that I couldn't get out of that. Even this is actually kind of hard right now, because I don't really feel like I have that much energy, but I felt, what better time to record a podcast about depression than when I feel depressed, because I don't usually anymore feel depressed. It's very rare that I feel depressed anymore. I've become very much a person of a positive mindset, and a center of that is gratitude and understanding and faith and belief. But the energy can still go there when you feel a certain way, when energy is in a certain place. And I think people that are experiencing depression often are minimized in their suffering. Like, oh, you're depressed, you just need to get outside. Have you tried yoga? Have you tried meditation? Have you tried this organic food? Have you tried... yes, I tried all of that, Margaret, and it's not working for me. You just... it didn't start clearing up for me until I personally started doing spiritual work and shadow work and developed a circle of support. When I didn't have a circle of support, it felt very, very, very isolating. And actually, it still felt isolating when I did have a circle of support, because the circle of support was doing better, and I know they had compassion for me, and I know they had empathy for me, and I know they were trying to make me feel better. But when you're in the midst of depression, sometimes it doesn't just dissipate because you do anything. It's there, and even though you're having an experience that is supposed to be fun, I could be at a roller coaster, theme park, or doing something like dope, and if I'm depressed, I'm still not feeling anything about that. So, and it's almost sad to even do anything. It makes you not want to do anything because you're like, I'm not going to enjoy it anyway. It's going to have this sense of melancholy to it where like everyone's having fun and I'm not having fun, even though I'm present for the experience. So now it's like, I wish I didn't have the experience so I wouldn't have to feel sad about not feeling the way everyone else does, because now it's a memory that's tainted with depression. That's how I felt anyway about a lot of my memories and a lot of my experiences. And I don't know. And depression also just, they say that there's a genetic component, and I think that has to do with intergenerational trauma personally. Passing down that trauma from generations and then traumatizing the child, and then they have stuff within them that tells them they're unworthy, they're incapable, they're all these things, and that becomes internalized, and they become helpless or feel helpless, and then that manifests as depression. Especially if you focus on the negative things in the world, it's very easy to focus on the negative in the news and the media, social media, any of it, because energy goes where attention goes. So when you put your attention on negative things, your energy tends to shift more negatively, because now you're afraid of this thing happening, this bad thing. These bad people are doing bad things, and the bad thing's going to come to me next, and then I'm going to have a bad life. And so it creates this cycle of fear, and the root of it all, it really is fear. But the fear of not being able to do stuff, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of never enjoying life, the fear of never being satisfied with life, the fear of never finding love, the fear of never being loved, the fear of just all these fear matrix ideologies that creep into your mind and that you perceive to be true, because in that depressive state, it feels true. And that's anxiety as well. Anxiety and depression go hand in hand, because depression is kind of like, I can't do anything to make my situation better, and that sucks. And anxiety is, oh God, I can't do anything to make it better. The future is also going to suck. So like, it's a very, very delicate cycle to try to break out of. And for me, I spent years in that cycle. And when I say years, probably 21 to 30, say 34, 35. This year is when it changed. 35. So 14 years of chronic depression, anxiety, depersonalization, derealization, like CPTSD, and these are all names for just physical manifestations of these states. So I don't like to identify with them and say, I have this, I have that. I experience the symptomology of bipolar disorder, so I take medication for that. You know what I mean? Instead of identifying and saying, I have this thing, which attaches it to me and my identity and gives it more power. I don't like to do that anymore. Before, I would always say it's my depression, it's my anxiety. I didn't want to take responsibility or accountability. But at the same time, that stuff was very real, and it was hindering me, and I could not break out of it at the time, or I would have. That's like divine timing. That's like when things are ready, then they're ready. You have to learn the lessons first. So I truly believed that I believed that I was stuck, but I also, some part of me still had hope and faith that it would get better. And luckily that was my future self pulling me and saying, it will, don't give up. And I gave up many times. I think people counted me out, because I would just make a status like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I'm fucking over it, like, I'm done struggling, I can't work a job, I can't take care of myself, I'm tired of relying on people to take care of me and then letting them abuse me because I'm dependent on them, and I don't think I can be safe on my own, so I have to endure this emotional, abuse or gaslighting or whatever. And that's, I think, an experience a lot of people with depression go through, because you latch on to usually a partner to try to take care of you because you think that you can't do it on your own. That's how my parents were, my mom and my stepdad. My stepdad took care of my mom because she was very mentally ill. she would always say, I'm fucked up. And like, she was very hurt and harmed. She went through a lot of traumatic experiences, and she didn't believe herself to be strong enough to get through them because she didn't have the information that I have from the internet that shows you how to heal. That's like one of the most like amazing things about the internet, YouTube and all this stuff, is that there is a ton of information available from professionals, from psychologists, psychiatrists, scientists, and also spiritual gurus that just offer a perspective on how to heal from that stuff and give you a little bit of hope. And then you try these little things, like when I started doing meditations, when I started doing EMDR, when I really started delving into the fact that I did have trauma and I did have stuff that was unresolved and it was harming me, and I did have unprocessed emotions, and I didn't even know. No one tells you how to emotionally process unless you have really emotionally intelligent parents. They don't teach that in school, so people, of course, are prone to depression and anxiety. They're focusing on negative things. They feel disempowered because the system that we're in right now is meant to disempower you, so you fall into line and just do what you're supposed to do to keep this business society capitalism running. And I don't want to really get into that right now, but just that is a big part of how I dealt with my depression, was the fact that I had a lot of shame, being like, I felt like it was my fault. Like, I can't work. I can't support myself. Why can't I just do this? Like, mind over matter. Why can't I just push myself to do it? But when you're in depression, it's like your energy centers are really blocked up. Your heart's blocked, your sacral's blocked, your root's blocked, everything's blocked. So you feel like you have no energy. And I felt that, like, it was like, I couldn't force myself. I would have to force myself to do things. And it felt, like, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to eat. Like, it was just tormenting, because things that didn't even give me joy anyway, like just chores of living, became chores of living with no positive to off balance it. Like, you do a bunch of stuff during your day, and then you're like, well, when I get home, I'm going to snuggle up and watch Netflix and make something that I like to eat and blah, blah. When you're depressed, none of that really gives you any joy. So it's like doing the suffering part doesn't really ever have a reward. So it just feels like it's all suffering. And that is extremely heavy on the soul. So therapy is really important. But at the same time, therapy is a hit or miss, because your therapist can be good or not so good. Like, not everyone has the same issues. Not everyone is qualified. And I've had some therapists that really were compassionate, empathetic people, but they did not really help me because they didn't mesh with what I needed. I needed solutions. I needed like a more esoteric and cerebral solution, something that was like going into my mind and solving it, and not just breathing. Well, breathing is actually really important, but just not just talking about it. I couldn't just talk about it and then the emotions are gone and then I'm fine. I needed like techniques. That's the word. I needed techniques to be able to do stuff. So some therapists I had were really good. The one I had, he was a man, and he was amazing. And he actually got promoted because he was so good, and I was sad because he couldn't be my therapist anymore. But he worked with me a bunch when I was doing EMDR stuff. I think it's EMDR, eye movement desensitization or something. I don't know. Something like that. And it's like when you move your eyes back and forth while you're tapping, and you go through traumatic memories, but you keep your eyes open and you're still like, it keeps you kind of present in the space, but also going into that space so you don't get lost in it. And I highly recommend it. I don't recommend doing it alone. I think you should do it with an EMDR trained person, but I didn't have that luxury at the time, and I trusted myself to be able to do it. So, and it worked well for me, but I wouldn't recommend anyone do anything without consulting a medical professional. But that one really helped me a lot. And then meditation helped. But those things didn't work until I was at a space where I could accept this information, because before that I had to heal a bit. I was too depressed to even, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I remember I wanted to go to Outfest, which was like a little gay block party in Philly. And I woke up that day and I was just so depressed. It felt like a heavy pressure in my head, like an anvil on top of me. And when I closed my eyes, I would just like not even have an imagination. It would just be nothingness and like anxiety. And I was like, I can't go. I don't have the energy. I can't lift myself out of bed. It's too heavy, like physically. Like, people don't talk about how, or I guess people might talk about it, but a lot of people don't understand that depression really is an energy thing as well. And like, you don't have the energy. I felt like I weighed 1,000 pounds and I couldn't lift my head. And that's not something you can just like work through. Like, you can, but it's extremely uncomfortable. It feels like kind of gears grinding in my head together like the whole time. It's like insufferable, but you have to do it sometimes to survive, and it makes you want to just jump out of your skin and scream. And so like even when I wanted to do stuff that I would enjoy, I couldn't do it because the depression was it was all encompassing. It was like a vice grip on my head of this black cloud of just like everything sucks, nothing brings you joy. And the hardest part for me, and I don't know if it was part of the depersonalization stuff or if it was also depression, because these things overlapped for me. I couldn't feel love. I couldn't feel loved. It felt like nothing. And it was extremely disorienting and upsetting, because love is one of the most comforting, it is the most comforting thing. It's what the universe is made of, but I couldn't feel it. I felt completely alone. I felt completely desperate and without hope. And I felt like, if I can never love again, what's the point of doing all this? Like, if I never feel good, if I never feel like I'm home, if I never feel content or satisfied or at peace, why would I still be here? And that thought ate away at me a lot. And I think a lot of people can relate to that at certain points in their life. For me, it was genetically tied. My mom was very depressed and anxious, and she had a whole bunch of disorders, a slew of disorders from her trauma. And I thought that it was just a part of me. I thought it was wired in, and that I couldn't escape from it. But when I started doing shadow work and I had a support system and I started processing emotions that I didn't know were still inside of me, a lot of anger and resentment that I was never allowed to feel, a lot of sadness and grief that I didn't want to feel, then things started kind of becoming lighter. And it gave me hope. Spirituality really gave me hope, because it was like, it finally gave me the notion of, this isn't pointless. This isn't meaningless. Everything does happen. There's a reason for this. There's an intricate, interwoven system here that is designed for us to move through it, to learn and grow and expand from these experiences. And it's all by design. And you are supported the entire time. Did I feel supported through that? Fuck no. I felt completely abandoned, but that was part of the process for me to learn the lesson that I am my own biggest supporter, and I have to internalize the good things about myself, that I am a good person, that I am a kind person, that I am a compassionate person. And there was many times during that depression that I did things that did not reflect that, because I was just trying to survive. And then I had to forgive myself for that. I'd stolen from people, which was horrible. I'd gone off on people. I'd cut off people. I'd wanted to support people, but I didn't have the energy to. And that made me feel bad, because all I ever wanted was to make other people feel seen and heard and good. And when I couldn't do that because I wasn't feeling that way and I didn't have the energy, it would trigger in me like, wow, I'm not a good person, or I would have done this for that. And it was just a lot of shame and guilt. And depression is not just, oh, I feel bad. It's tied to so many other things. There's jealousy and envy tied in there. Like, why do other people get to feel good when I've tried everything I can to be a good person and I still feel like shit? Why do other people get these opportunities that I'm not getting just because they are more able-bodied than me? And just anger, like, why the fuck is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? I cursed this guy so many times. Why the fuck do I deserve this? What the fuck have I done in my life to make this my reality? Like, this is, like, what kind of karma did I accrue that I must suffer and be punished like this? It felt like a punishment. It felt like divine punishment. It felt like the world had turned its back on me and that there was nothing out there. And only when I started to go inward did spirit kind of reveal itself to me and open the door. I remember the first kind of semblance of hope I got that triggered something in me was a video that I saw on YouTube. It was a thumbnail and I clicked on it. I don't remember what the thumbnail was and I don't remember why, but it was Wu Wei Wisdom, great channel. And they said, everything that anyone has ever said about you is an opinion. And that shook something in me because it made me realize that everything my parents called me or my family or people in my past were just external observations of my internal experience, and it didn't necessarily mean that they were true. It was just I didn't know it at the time yet, but I was the but I was the receiver of so much projection. And that's another thing, is when you are depressed, you do often feel like a victim and fall into a victim complex, because this thing seemingly from nowhere is happening to you and you can't seem to do anything about it, and no one's helping you, and it's just, or they do help you, but then they get tired after a while when you don't get better. They've been helping you, and then it's like it doesn't seem to get better, and then they're like, well, why am I making this energetic investment if this person doesn't want to get better? And they think that you're not doing something that you're supposed to be doing, or that you're, I don't know, failing, or that you're not doing it on purpose or something like that, doing it for attention. So, but that video made me realize that I was being projected on, and it jostled the first blocks of shadow work where I was like, wait, let me go back into my memories. Because for years of this also, I think people with depression might experience kind of you're blocked off from your emotional connection to your memories. Looking back on memories might feel more like a movie or an observation externally of something, and you can't remember how you felt in the moment. You just know how it was, but you can't put yourself in the first person perspective of how it felt to be in that moment. And when I started doing the shadow work and getting really deep into it, I used a lot of like brainwave activation things, like 352 hertz theta wave active. I forget what the different waves and the different forms. There's like alpha, beta, delta, and there's some that put you in almost a trance state. And I would use those to try to go back into my memories and kind of recalibrate them with my newfound knowledge. I started doing a lot of research on psychology, as you know, and reformatted, I guess, my hard drive. Could put a new perspective on things and made myself, instead of the victim or the perpetrator of crimes that I hadn't forgiven myself for, I made myself into a human being that was learning for the first time, that was being projected upon, that was doing the best that they could at the time with the tools and knowledge they had available. And that reframed my internal view of myself. Thank you. And started healing my inner child. And when I started doing that, the depression started to slowly feel a little less heavy. The anxiety started to feel a little less heavy. And through spirituality and seeing that there's things that are deeper than they seem, that gave me hope that there was something, an epiphany or something, a higher consciousness that I could reach that would save me from this. I was looking for something to save me, and in a way it did, but it wasn't spirituality saving me, it was me saving me, using spirituality, using these different avenues of healing and gaining knowledge and wisdom. And wisdom is gained through experience, and I learned after that I had to go through these experiences so that I could gain the wisdom to help other people that are going through the same thing or similar things. And it sucked to know that a little bit, because I was like, years of my life, my entire 20s were taken by this thing. All my memories are tainted by this underlying feeling of dread and hopelessness and lack of connection. That's another thing, is depression really hampers your ability to connect with other human beings. It feels like I'm seeing aura, and it almost feels like there's a shield around you, like a black, like, and it's like no one can penetrate it to get in. All you want is to love and be loved. And there's like this wall between you and other people, even other people that are depressed. Like, you can relate to them a little bit more, but you still don't feel that. All I wanted was connection. All I really wanted was connection. And that was the hardest thing, I think, to cope with depression and anxiety, was just not feeling like I see other people connecting. I see other people in love. I see other people enjoying their lives, and I'm just watching from this like weird removed sideline, waiting, put me in, coach, and coach never put me in. And it was sad, because then you start seeing people get married and fall in love and have children, and you're just still sitting there like in this dark cloud of like, wow, fuck, my life sucks. My brain sucks. Everything sucks. And it just feels like everything sucks, and everything's gonna suck forever. It feels like a forever suck. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. But you have to be willing to do the work. And I hate saying the work because it sounds pretentious. I feel like it's become a new age, like, doing the work, I'm doing the work. And then no one tells you what the work is. Like, the work is going inward, it's journaling, it's recording videos of yourself talking about all these traumatic experiences and watching it back. It's diving into these emotions and feeling them in your physical body and letting them move through you and letting the anxiety move through your body and your nervous system. It's moving your body and getting that stuff out. It's detaching from the narratives of the past that are coloring your future and rewriting the story. It's going back and recalibrating the story from your newfound perspective and your newfound knowledge. It's all of these things that are very important that no one tells you how to do unless you seek it. And you have to seek it to be able to go there. And like the entire journey is inward, and that journey inward will bring things from the outside to you, like law of attraction stuff. But I don't want to tell anyone how to heal. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. What worked for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but I'm just sharing the information in case someone is curious and feels like a resonance in it, that it might work for them, a curiosity and a way out, you know, like a potential way out. And like I said, today I still feel a little depressed, but there's no hopelessness. There's no narrative attached to it that I'm like, oh no, everything's going to be bad. Like, it's just now when it comes, it's just an energy. I'm tired. I feel a little down. I'm going to nap. I'm going to put on a comfort show. It won't make me feel fantastic, but it'll get me through it, and it will dissipate as it always does and come in waves and leave in waves. And instead of just being this all-encompassing thing that is crushing your soul, and anxiety is worse, I would say. I remember many times having panic attacks, or almost the being on the precipice of a panic attack, and that almost being worse than the panic attack, because at least the panic attack would be over in a bit. Being on the edge of a panic attack, you're just you just don't want it to come, and you're freaking out, and it's hours, you know, like of just doing that, and you can't think of anything else. Depression is like, oh man, everything sucks, I'm gonna try to distract myself. Anxiety is a very active nervous system state where you cannot think of anything else, and you cannot, like, it is, your mind is racing, your body is, my skin would be on fire, I would lose some proprioceptive things, I would feel dizzy and like not like know where my limbs are, and like my muscles would get very weak and shaky, and like it would just be, it's an entire body experience, and it's just, it makes you feel like you're not a person, because you're just, all you are is anxiety. You are just this panicking animal, shaking and like worrying and like unable to logically get yourself out of it, because it's not a logic thing. You can't think your way out of anxiety. Depression is more like stagnant. It's like a stasis. So I would rather be depressed than be anxious. I used to always tell myself that when the anxiety would go down and I was just fucking depressed, I'd be like, well, at least it's just depression now and not me freaking out. And anxiety comes down to the same thing, feeling like you're out of control, and your logical brain predicting that. It's really, I guess, your lizard brain is what's freaking out, and then your logical brain is like, oh God, here's all the reasons why it's bad and everything that's gonna happen. But when you're in like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and that's usually anxiety states, your higher level thinking, your neocortex, goes from like 90% of like your brain power to like 10. I saw a chart on it once, don't quote me on that, but I did see science on it, trust me. So it's like your logical brain literally goes out the window, and you're just in like the lizard brain freaking out stage. So again, you don't feel like a person, you feel like an animal, just like something's going to attack you, something's going to kill you, and you know it's not, so you don't know what to do about it, because you're like, there is literally no threat brain. But the threat is your fear of the anxiety, the resistance to the anxiety, because the anxiety is always trying to tell us something is under the surface waiting to be processed, something needs to be worked on, something needs to be felt physically. And when we resist that because we are caught in the throes of the anxiety, and we become afraid of the anxiety getting worse, like, oh no, I'm going to have a panic attack and that's going to be uncomfortable. The irony is, what's driving us to the panic attack is the resistance to the anxiety physically in our body. We go into our mind and we retreat, and then that's not a safe place either. So now we can't even dissociate. So our brain thinks, oh wow, there's no way out of this. So then it makes more anxiety. And so that sucks. And it doesn't help to think about it. It doesn't help to think about it. You can say, I'm totally safe right now. Like, it does help to change the narrative in your head. I remember thinking that, like, I'm totally safe and everything is just seeming this way but you kind of don't give a fuck about that when it's happening. You kind of really don't give a fuck because it's just, oh my God, 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 oh my God. Like, that's how it feels. That was me kind of embodying that. And it's scary. It's the scariest thing. It's terror. It's dread. It's like, it's all the negative feelings. And that's gone away from me as well. I don't really get anxious like that anymore because I know when I feel anxiety, now it's become just a feeling in my body. I've detached from the narratives that would play in my head, which took a ton of work. It took a ton of times being anxious and and convincing my brain to be like, it's fine. No, it's really fine. But to do that, you have to ride out the physical feeling and not resist it. And not resisting is, I remember trying not to resist while it's happening, and it was so hard because it's just so much fear and so much fear. It was so much fear, and the fear is telling you to do nothing but freak out, and to override that is crazy hard. But you can do it. It is possible. And then the anxiety dissipates. It doesn't stay because you're not afraid of it. It passes through you. You allow it to pass through your nervous system physically. And that means we are conscious awareness, right? I say this on the channel. We are not our body. We are not our mind. We are not our feelings. We are not our thoughts. We are the conscious awareness experiencing all of this. And your conscious awareness is your most powerful. It's where all your power lies. So you need to take your conscious awareness into your body, pay attention to your body when you are feeling the anxiety, even though it is very uncomfortable. But you have to learn to get down and sit in your body in that discomfort, shake it out, move. Because when animals feel anxiety, there's no narrative attached because they don't have egos and they can't, they don't predict the future. They don't have that part of their brain, but a deer will run from a predator and run and run and run. And then when it gets away, it will shake vigorously when it finally gets to safety. It will shake because it has to shake out all that energy that was pumping through its body. And that's how mammals work. And we are the same way. We need to shake it out afterwards. Like, the worst thing you can do after having anxiety is be still, because then it is just sitting in your nervous system. You need to move and get that, I learned how to shake it and just like, like, no, don't think about looking stupid or whatever. Like, you just need to do it because that is how it moves through your nervous system. And you have to be aware and bring your conscious awareness to your body as you're doing it and not be stuck in your mind, which is very, very difficult. But you can do it and you get better at it the more you do it. It took me a long time to learn how to do this, but mostly because I needed the information first. And then after I got the information, I had to prove to my brain, because you can get as much information as you want and make as much sense as you want. But your human brain, to integrate it, is going to need to have an experience that confirms it. So once you start confirming it by doing it and seeing that the anxiety dissipates faster, suddenly it becomes easier to cope with, and it becomes faster and faster every time. The last time I was really anxious, I remember recently, first time in months, I had smoked a bunch of weed, and then I got a little anxious in my body, and it was like very uncomfortable, but I breathed through it and I shook out a little bit. It probably lasted about a half an hour. I was very uncomfortable, but I knew that it was, again, no narrative attached to it. It was just, I'm having an anxious experience because I smoked too much weed. Some thoughts are going to come in that are very uncomfortable. I'm not going to give credit to those thoughts, but I'm going to let them roll through my head like a movie. And then it passed, and then I was fine. And that's the only time I've been anxious in months. And I have had many experiences that you would think would cause you anxiety. I used to be a very, very anxious person, very afraid all the time of everything, of going outside at night, of going to a place with a lot of people. Oh God, what if there's a mass shooting? Oh God, what if there's a robber? Oh God, what if something happens that's embarrassing? Oh God. And like, now that doesn't really happen because I just expect good things to happen. And that took a lot of experiences for my brain to believe. It starts with one little experience that's okay, that's fine. And then it becomes, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try this again. And every time when something bad doesn't happen, you become more attuned to the positive expectation, and then more positive things happen. That is the law of attraction. And do bad things happen to me still sometimes? Yes, of course. But I'm willing to look at them as a manifestation for a lesson of some kind, and know that they're teaching me something, and that it's not always going to, I'm safe. I'm still safe. I'm safe in my body. I'm safe in my mind. And that's the real thing. The kicker is you have to be able to feel safe in your mind. If your mind doesn't feel safe, then you are prone to anxiety and depression, especially anxiety. And I didn't feel safe in my mind for all those years because I was afraid of the anxiety and the discomfort. And so my brain would make more anxiety because we didn't feel comfortable in our brain and we didn't feel like we had anything to do to relieve that or save ourselves from it. But letting go of the resistance to it was the path to healing it, and recalibrating my belief system about the world and about myself, about how I was safe, about how I could take care of myself, about how my inner child needed to feel safe with me and trust me to guide us through this world. The inner child is always reaching out, trying to feel safe within us. And one thing I learned that really helped me was talking about feelings, because a lot of times we'll be like, well, I just feel like she doesn't like me, or I feel like that person blah, 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 or I feel like this. I feel is a statement that, unless you're talking about like your actual emotions, can often be the inner child reaching for like safety. Like, I feel like this thing's gonna happen. It's like, in one of those Wu Wei wisdom videos, they told me, replace that. Whenever you're saying I feel in your head, be like, that's your inner child. You have to think, I believe, I choose, or I think. I think, I choose, I believe. So it's like when you say like, oh, I feel like something bad is going to happen. Do I believe something bad is going to happen? Am I choosing that something bad is going to happen? Am I just thinking that something bad is going to happen? So it puts more of the accountability for the thought on you, so you can assert that you are in control of the situation. You might not be in control of the external situation, but you're in control of how you respond to it. Instead of just a vague, I feel like this, and then you ask, well, why do you feel that way? Well, I don't know. But if you say, I believe this, it's like, well, why do I believe that? It becomes a thing that you can use the golden thread, which is something they also teach in the Wu Wei Wisdom video, where you say, well, why do I think that? Well, I guess because of this experience. Well, why do I think that? Why did I think that then? Well, I guess because of this experience. And you follow it all the way down to the root cause, usually in childhood, where someone made you feel like the world isn't safe for you, or that you are incapable in some way. And so following that really helps me dismantle some limiting beliefs, because a lot of it is also limiting beliefs about yourself that you can't do things. But when it comes to anxiety, it really is the feeling of loss of control. And when you realize you do have control, not necessarily of your thoughts, but of how you respond to your thoughts, because thoughts are just frequencies passing through you. They're like, you're on the frequency of this thing, so this thought is going to come through. You realize when you're depressed, you only have depressing thoughts. When you're feeling good, all your thoughts are pretty good. Not a coincidence. It's the frequency that you're vibrating at, bringing those thoughts, onto your radar. You're aligning with them. So when you're in a lower frequential place, then your thoughts are going to be lower, and you have to be able to discern whether or not you want to attach to those thoughts. If I'm saying that something bad's going to happen, or this isn't going to work out for me, then you're giving power to those thoughts with your conscious awareness that is going to affect the probability of that situation manifesting. And then it happens, and then your logical brain is like, see, it happened again, just like all the last times. And then it confirms it to you, and then it becomes a pattern, and then it becomes a belief system, and then it becomes something that keeps happening, and you don't think you can break out of it because everything in the past data has shown you that this is going to continue happening. And breaking out of that is so hard when you don't have any data showing you the opposite. But that's where faith comes in, and trust in yourself. And that's built through pushing through these experiences and recalibrating, again, your internal belief system by going through your memories and recalibrating how you feel about yourself and the world. It's a lot. It's a lot. Mental illness is very serious, and I just wanted to talk about depression and anxiety today. There's a million other things I could go into, personality disorders and all kinds of stuff, but I wanted to keep it limited to depression and anxiety because they're very personal things to me. But it can also be a blessing sometimes, and I know that's weird to say, but sometimes I'll try too hard to be perfect. And not perfect, not anymore, I don't try to be perfect, but you go out, you want to be put together. I want to make sure I look good. I want to make sure I feel like I am portraying how I want to be portrayed. And that can lead to a bit of perfectionism. And when depression hits, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I don't give a fuck. Like, I really don't give a fuck. I'm going to go out with my shit messed up, and not the perfect clothes, and not the perfect fucking posture, and not the perfect looking like this all the time. And it can be freeing to not give a fuck a little bit when it comes in spurts, not when it's your overall state of consciousness. But sometimes I feel like the depression comes through for me to remind me that it's not that serious, and that you have to stop worrying about how people perceive you and just fucking exist. Because no one gives that much of a fuck. The people that love you give that much of a fuck, but random strangers on the street don't give that much of a fuck if you're in sweatpants and your hair's fucked up, So there are positives sometimes that you can glean from it, because if I'm having anxiety, Not the panic anxiety where you're freaking out and your lizard brain is activated, but the kind of anxiety where I'm worried about what other people think about me. Depression can almost counter that with, well, I don't give a fuck right now. So I don't know. It's a spectrum of things, and everyone's experience is different. Some people, like people with PTSD, their anxiety is much more tied to traumatic events that still are activating their amygdala in their brain, which is like this almond-shaped thing in like the center of back here somewhere behind the third eye. And that's what activates your fear response and tries to keep you safe. It's to try to keep you safe, but it's a malfunction of the system, kind of, when you're anxious in a situation that you're not threatened by anything, because the brain does not know the difference between danger and perceived danger. Like real danger and perceived danger are the same thing to the brain. That's what has to be recalibrated, how you perceive danger. Because if you perceive your own mind to be dangerous because you're scared of the anxiety, then it creates more anxiety, ironically. That's what the depersonalization, derealization was. I'll go into that just a little bit. But basically, the depersonalization, derealization makes you feel like depersonalization is detachment from the self, and derealization is detachment from the environment, which is weird to think about now, actually, for me in this moment, because I realize that everything external is actually internal. Everything is mind, everything is spirit, but it feels like it's separate, and you end up feeling very separate from yourself and from your environment. So I felt like nothingness. I felt like I had no thoughts. I did have thoughts, but they were just ruminations of how horrible I felt all the time. But you're living in a state of fear. It's basically a malfunctioning fear response in the brain where you feel so unsafe in your brain and your body that it kind of yanks the cord and pulls you out of it and emotionally just numbs you. It detaches you. And a lot of people experience little stints of depersonalization and derealization where your environment suddenly doesn't feel as real. It feels like you're in a movie. It feels like you're watching yourself from above. It feels like all that stuff, and that's because your spirit is kind of pulling you back because it feels too painful and too scary to be in your physical body, so you need to be removed a bit until you feel safe again. But the irony is, it feels very scary to go through this because you're like, something's not right, something's fucked up, things are fucked up. And then you're afraid of the symptom of the anxiety response, which creates more anxiety, which perpetuates the response. And I was stuck in that for a long time, not accepting the situation because it was extremely uncomfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable to be anxious. It's extremely uncomfortable to be in those states, and becoming okay with them is really an uphill battle because I don't like feeling that way. I don't want to feel that way. But when I do feel that way, now I accept that I can breathe and watch my thoughts and not attach to them and know that it's going to pass. Instead of before, it would be more like, oh God, my thought was I'm going to be thrust back into that depersonalization, derealization, low space. And then I'm going to be fucked up and not be able to live my life. And I'm going to feel horrible all the time again. And so I was afraid of the response to it, which was driving the anxiety up. And it was just a very vicious cycle. And so when people experience those kind of spaces where they're detached and it feels fucked up, you have to not be afraid of it. But saying not be afraid is dumb because you can't just not be afraid of something. You have to push yourself through it even though you're scared and try to sit in it in your body. And that is treacherous. It feels treacherous. It feels very, very scary. But it can be done. And it can be done into a space where, I'm telling you, anyone that knows me knows that for many years I was extremely anxious, extremely victim complex, extremely I can't do anything, I needed help from everyone. Now I feel like a very grounded person who people come to for support, like me. Like they come to me for support. They come to me for help. And not that I still reach out for help because obviously my physical situation right now is a bit tumultuous, but emotionally I am the rock. And I was never the rock. I was always someone that needed a rock. And that created a very anxious attachment style as well. If you have depression and anxiety, you most likely probably have an anxious attachment style because you feel like you need someone else there to help regulate you because you can't regulate yourself. You need someone to make you feel safe. You need someone to make you feel secure. You need their co-regulation of their nervous system touching you and like holding you to feel okay because you can't seem to make that happen within yourself. And I still struggle with that sometimes. I do get dysregulated, and it does feel nice to have another person to co-regulate, but the goal of it is to be able to regulate yourself so you can be in the space of being grounded and being balanced and being able to take care of your own shit. And I still do feel overwhelmed sometimes, but I wouldn't even say that. I feel whelmed. I would always say I feel whelmed. I feel very whelmed right now but not overwhelmed because I know I can handle it. Whereas before I would be like, I'm overwhelmed. I just can't. I just fucking can't. You get to a space where you're like, I just fucking can't. Every new stimuli is just too much. You have to like go into hermit mode and like just sit under the covers and fucking, you can't, oh shit. Woohoo. Woohoo. My bad. That was startling. But fuck, what was I saying? But then you can't even cry. I remember when I was depressed and going through all this stuff, I couldn't even cry. I was so sad about my life, but I was so numb that I couldn't even cry. And then you feel like, am I faking it? Do I even care that much? I don't care about anything. Like, that was the over-encompassing feeling, was I don't care about anything. My mom died. I had to force myself to try to cry. It was very hard because I was worried about what other people would think about me. Like, I don't care enough. Like, I was my mom. But the truth is, I was so dissociated at the time and depressed that I could not feel anything. So, and then that became something I had to process later. Honestly, I still feel like it's been 12 years. I still feel like I haven't fully processed that. I don't know when that's going to come in, you know? So like, and then you can feel guilty about not caring enough too, as if it's your fault that you're not giving enough of a fuck, when it's really just brain stuff. And it's not just brain stuff. It's very spiritual as well. You know, your soul is kind of pulling you back and kind of putting you in this stasis space until you figure out how to get yourself out of it and you empower yourself. And it feels like the most disempowered space. So it's like, what do you mean I have to get myself out of it? I can't even get out of bed in the morning. What the fuck? Like, it was so infuriating, honestly. I would curse, you know, fuck everything. Why do I feel this way? I'm a good person. Like, I can really feel like I do everything to be a good person, and yet I am suffering, and that's why I can feel like a punishment. But it really is just spirit showing you, like, there's lessons to be learned here, and you can get yourself out of it. I started practicing gratitude, and it felt fake as fuck at first. Like, I'm grateful that I have a place to live, even though this sucks. I'm grateful that I have friends, even though this sucks. I'm grateful that I have, even though this sucks. But over time, that gratitude became very real feeling, because I really did start shifting my perspective, my attention from lack and things that I didn't have and the pain that I was experiencing to, even though I'm experiencing this pain, there are good things in my life that I can appreciate. And again, it felt almost like imposter syndrome at first, because I was like, this doesn't do anything, but I'm going to keep trying. And then the more I did it, the more it worked. And now I feel a base state of gratitude, really. Like, I don't think about anything in lack. I still find those thoughts coming through sometimes, but you can really, the brain is very plastic, and plastic sounds like it's not malleable, but neuroplasticity is basically your brain can heal from anything. And I say anything, I'm not sure about traumatic brain injuries and stuff, I'm not talking about that, but like emotional and like mental anguish and things that have happened, it is very adept at healing. And that healing is very dependent on your belief in the fact that you can heal. So when you shift from this is forever and I hate this and my life sucks and I'm never going to be able to get out of it, to maybe there are some things I can do to feel better, that opens the door to maybe there are some things I can do to feel better. And then more things come through that you can feel better, and then more things. And then suddenly you push yourself into situations that you didn't think you were strong enough to go into before, and you do it and you come out fine, even better. Then your brain starts to believe that you can do it, and it has more confidence in you, and your inner child has more confidence that you are able to keep them safe. And then things start to lighten up, and you don't feel as down about yourself. You start feeling like a capable person, like an empowered person, little by little, not all at once. But fear is something that you have to, fear is an illusion ultimately, and it feels very real when it's happening, because it can manifest in physical form if you give it enough power, and it's a very, very strong feeling. But bravery is feeling that fear and doing it anyway. And when you start doing it anyway, doing it afraid, and you see yourself do it, your brain starts checking that box off of, we can do this, we can do this. And suddenly your thoughts start shifting from, I can't do it, to, I can handle that probably. I can make this. And if I fail at it, it's not a flaw in my character. It is just that I am learning a lesson here. I'm developing a mastery over this, and I have to flop a few times before I can slay. You know what I mean? So it's a process. It is a process of self-mastery to get through this stuff. And I lived my life for those 14 years basically thinking that I couldn't get out of it. And I had people tell me, like, you have to stop limiting yourself. And I was like, no, this is just how it is. Like, I'm just being logical. Like, this is how it has been, so this is how it's going to be. And that is the human logical brain. That's the fallacy of, this has happened before, so it's going to happen again. Like, the human brain predicting so it feels safe. Even though that safety is misery, it still is clinging to that sense of safety because you don't feel safe within yourself. But in opening myself up to spiritual practices and the possibility of the universe being a conscious being and there being something higher than us, I opened up the door to possibility that maybe there are ways to do this that other people haven't told me yet. Maybe I can discover things that will enlighten me and resolve these feelings of nothingness and emptiness. It gave me a purpose. It gave me some meaning. It gave me a pathway of discovery, like, oh, this is something that I need to, this is the most important thing. This is the underlying thing that makes everything else make sense. And I want everything to make sense, because when everything makes sense, you feel safe. And the irony is, a lot of it is like the you realize it doesn't make sense. The paradox is, it makes so much sense, but also it fucking doesn't make any sense at all. Thank you. And you start finding comfort in that. Like, I don't know, and that's okay. I can't predict that, and that's okay, because it's going to be okay. It always is okay. It doesn't feel like it's going to be okay. It doesn't feel okay when it's happening, but then I heal, and it's okay. So I don't want to get preachy, but I do want to instill hope, if I can, in people, because I was one of the most depressed motherfuckers you'd ever meet. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't lift my head. Everything tasted like shit. Everything smelled like shit. Everything was just nothing. Everything was nothing. People being nice to me was nothing. People dying was nothing. Everything was nothing. Now everything holds a lot of fucking meaning for me, and everything feels very deep. Not all the time. I mean, if I'm in like a state like I am right now, things feel a little number, but it's not nearly what it was, and it's not hopeless. It's just, oh, this is the energy right now. Maybe there's something that I haven't processed that I need to work on. And I use it as a tool to understand myself better and resolve whatever issues that it's trying to tell me that I have. So, I'm not sure. If you're struggling with depression and anxiety, I highly recommend going to a therapist and finding someone that can validate you. And if the therapist doesn't feel like they're doing what they need to do for you, switch therapists. Highly recommend. Don't just stay with someone because you feel like that's all you can do. Like, ask to switch, because you need someone that resonates with you so you feel validated, and not just someone that's like, that's not going to do anything. I mean, maybe for some people it will. Maybe you just need to get it out. I don't know. Everyone's different. But I also highly recommend, if you're here, you're probably at least a little bit spiritual. And I recommend the Wu Wei Wisdom channel is amazing. But also just looking into trauma work and looking into ways to process unprocessed emotions and breathing techniques. And now I feel like I'm someone that's like, have you tried meditating? Have you tried breathing? At some point in your journey, that's not going to work. There's too much shit. It's not going to work. Everyone's journey is different, so I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just sharing what kind of worked for me and happened to me as someone who thought that they could never get out of it and was very, very in the depths of it. Severe depression. I remember thinking about dying kind of every day. Never did it, thank God, but those thoughts are also just frequencies and just kind of reflections of how I was feeling. So now if I ever have that thought, I know that it's a reflection of, I'm feeling low, so these thoughts are manifesting because I feel like I can't get out of this situation. What do I need to do to make myself feel safe? So, yeah, that's depression, that's anxiety. I hope that my story, although I only really grazed over it, might make you feel a little seen and a little heard if you're feeling anxiety and depression, because a lot of mine was from mental illness and not from a single traumatic event. If you've experienced a huge loss, you might feel depressed and anxious. If you've experienced just something that was overwhelming that you had no control over, that can lead to depression and anxiety if you don't process it. And like I said, a lot of people don't know how to process because we're not inherently taught how to process unless we are lucky enough to have a family that knows how to do that, because schools don't teach you, the world doesn't teach you. So just know that if you're feeling depressed and anxious, there are ways to not only make it better in the space that you're in, but make it better, reduce it overall. Because again, I used to be like that all the time, and I don't really feel anxious ever anymore. I might feel like a little bit of it, but before it was like stomach drop, head, and everything spinning, going upwards, and now it's just like, oh, my body's feeling anxious. I must not feel safe. It's okay. We're safe. Like, you have to train yourself to feel safe within your body and that you can handle this. That's like the core of dealing with anxiety, is making yourself feel safe. Truly safe. Proving to yourself that you feel safe. Not just thinking it, but proving that you are safe. So I hope to those of people that are struggling that you get the help that you need and just get some support. One of the most important things is having a support system that understands you and maybe hasn't gone through the same thing, but is willing to step into your shoes and say, wow, I can't imagine how difficult that must be. From the outside, I really can't imagine that, but I believe you. I believe that you are struggling that much. I believe that it is that hard to get out of bed. I believe that you feel so terribly that you can't even seem to do this thing. I believe that, instead of just projecting their own shit of, well, you need to do it anyway. Well, you just got to get out of bed. It's willpower. You just got to develop discipline, which is true in some aspects, but you can't just will yourself to not be depressed. It doesn't work that way. You have to do work. So you need someone that will meet you halfway and say, wow, that sucks. I'm here for you. I used to have friends like that were amazing. I would just come over to their house and they would play video games and I would just lay on their bed. And that was something that comforted me. I didn't need to be paid attention to. I just needed someone else there so I wasn't alone with my thoughts. And that's what a lot of people need to get through that sometimes. So definitely find some support. And just know that you're not alone. Other people feel this way. And even though it feels very isolating, there is another side. There's another side to it. And it doesn't mean it's going to be magic and fairy tales forever, but it does mean that your baseline being can be a place that is not so hopeless or devoid of joy and love. It can get better. It can. And it will. Solutions make themselves apparent when the timing is right. That's what I believe. So this ended on a kind of a somber note, but I hope, again, that this is helpful in some way. It just felt pertinent to say today because I am a person that has suffered many years from this stuff, and if I can be a beacon of hope for anybody like that, like that it can get better, I want to be that. I want to be that because it can get better. It will get better. You are not doomed. You are not doomed. You are not trapped. It can feel that way, but feelings are just, manifestations of energy and thought patterns and beliefs. When you change the belief, you can change the feeling. Okay. Well, I hope this was informative, and I hope that everyone that watched it, I need to develop a closing thing for this because I just don't have a closing line. This has been On Some Deep Shit with Doc the Oracle. I hope you have a blessed day. Until next time, goodbye.